Hello and welcome to the Executive Lounge with me, Inshira Ado. This is your business thought leadership program that brings you nuggets of insights from the experiences of men and women who have scaled the daunting heights of starting their own businesses or managing businesses across sectors and across the world. Today, my guest is a man whose imprint is already in your homes and in your lives. Is in the person of Cecil Sunkwa-Mills, the managing director of Go TV and MultiChoice Ghana. You're welcome to the Executive Lounge.
Thank you, Inshira.
You wear two hats. You get double pay?
No, I don't.
Oh, right.
We wear lots of hats, but we get one pay.
Okay, fantastic. Talking about pay, you run a pay TV service. Is this what you always wanted to do?
Well, sometimes you don't know where you end up, but originally I thought I may end up being a doctor. Yes.
You're one of those, eh? What was the second option after doctor? Lawyer? Engineer,
Actually, I thought I would also end up in music or maybe be a big DJ or something. But
okay, we'll explore all of those in a moment. But tell us a bit about, Cecil growing up. What was family like?
Family was close. My dad was a civil servant. He worked with the Ministry of Agriculture for years, and then later into banking. My mom was an educationist. They both of blessed memory, but it was a home of push to excel in school and discipline. Yeah, my mom she was a head teacher, so
okay.
The discipline was rife, but my father pushed more on excellence in school.
Okay.
And I went to boarding school at age of 6. Actually, I went to class 1 at 5 in my mother's school, Nima 2 primary school, near the police station.
Okay.
So when I started class 1, I was 5. Well, I guess I was a head teacher's kid, so I didn't get kicked around so much. But then I went to Achimota Primary at 6 years into boarding school, then to advancement, and then I did 6th form in Achimota.
Wow. Right. So at age 6, you were away from home 9 months at a time.
Yeah, then learned how to lay beds early and scrub my back quite early.
How has that, affected or shaped who you've become today?
I think on the average, I would say I take quite some risk. Maybe a calm person, but I'm not really afraid of taking certain risks, though calculated. And I guess it's what is also pushed some of the good things in life for me.
So for a risk taker and
calculated risk taker,
yes, and a son of an educationist and a man who worked in the civil service but pushed excellence at home. How often did you get into trouble?
Well, adequately, not all the time, because I had an exploratory mind. I remember maybe when I was young, first things, I blew a couple of radio sets because I was also always fixing them. We had a tape recorder, a rubber band, and my father allowed me to fix it. So I blew a couple, and it upset my mother a couple of times. But I wasn't too bad.
Interesting. So exploratory mind in an environment where there was freedom to explore, but also there was the, the steady hand of your mom shaping you. How was all of this panning out in terms of the relationship with you and your siblings? Was there a special treatment for you and others, or who was the favorite one?
Favorite one. I became favorite, what I said, became favorite of all my siblings and parents maybe much later in life. But growing up, I had 3 sisters and no brother. So I remember people would say, oh, you're the only boy, so, you've got a golden spoon, you'll be taken care of, you inherit everything and that kind of stuff. And my mother always snapped at me and said, you think they said that, and then I'll whack you, and that. So what happened was that I was very eager to become independent and not have my own. it pushed me rather that way, because I didn't like hearing that word of, oh, you're the only boy. It really upset me all the time.
Wow.
You know,
Do you
so
look
it
back and
pushed me.
still get upset that you're the only boy?
No, I didn't. So by the time I got into university, I was financially independent.
Now, a little bit of background check on you shows that while you were in university, you actually did do a bit of the music you wanted to do. Tell us that story.
Yeah. In those days, the colleagues or mates in tech, they could build transmitters. So, well, it wasn't legal then. I don't know if somebody can charge me now, but you know, for those days. So what we do is we buy a transmitter, we mount it on a bamboo pole on campus, and then we run a radio station locally on campus. So I used to play.
So
I used to
the
play
exploratory mind again at work, I guess.
Yeah. So I was reading zoology, and so that was my first degree. I actually read zoology with botany.
That's a peculiar choice.
And well, you know, my father was quite excited to have me get into medicine, so I told more of the biology line, and I did that till first degree, and then I branched off. I was supposed to do entomology, but I branched off and headed off into IT and business and marketing and all that.
Wow.
So yeah, I did a bit of that in university, and I used to play on the station, and we used to make adverts from cassettes and all that and play it too. We used to show movies and stuff like that.
So you, only boy. Typically and culturally, the only boy gets doted on. In your case, mom didn't allow you to think that you were going to get that easy ride. So you pushed yourself towards self-sustenance. And by university, you were earning money while you were in school.
Yep.
Now you're a managing director of a paid TV company.
Yep.
Do you see what I'm seeing, that there probably was, life was preparing you for the life you're living now?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I think so.
So how do you find working in the space you are now?
It's a very dynamic and interesting business. I've been with the company for 15 years, broken record. I was in banking for 5 years.
Okay.
And so it's a very dynamic business. It's an industry where a clear-cut demand of your consumer varies. You have a home where one person likes sports, the other likes telenovelas, somebody likes action movies, and somebody likes documentaries. But you've got a package and you want to get feedback from all these people. But with all these groupings, you've got only one person who pays. And so the decision of what will be watched, who pays, and it's quite complicated. So you've got to constantly engage your customers in different ways, both the payer and as much as possible with others. So we use different media often to engage all these people to have a consolidated idea of exactly what we should be focusing on.
Okay. Now, it is thought, and I subscribe to that belief, that your life journey creates your value system, the philosophies you live by. What has yours taught you?
Be truthful as much as you can. Humility takes you so far, and you must study hard, and because when you're educated, is something nobody can take away from you, and yeah, you should be given.
So humility,
yeah.
Study, work hard, and give.
Yeah, you should give.
And be honest as much as you can.
Yeah.
Okay.
You should give to people who you think they really need. So balance, so you're not preyed upon, but you should really be given.
So you wanted to be a doctor, and then you read zoology with botany. That's not medicine.
I think my parents wanted me to be a doctor.
Oh, your parents wanted you to be.
So at the point, I didn't know where I was going to end up. So yeah, after school, I thought, okay, I would go into medical research. So I was looking at medical entomology, and I got taken for my master's, but I didn't go. That was the year I lost my dad, and I reapplied, and then I went off to then ICT. It was those days. It was quite early.
So you were doing what? DOS?
MS-DOS, yeah.
Really?
MS-DOS, DBase.
And how did your mum take that decision?
She thought I'd gone wayward because I was supposed to be in school, and I was learning all kinds of, those days was early computer. And say, oh, he's not going to school, he's just doing this computer thing. But I was curious, and I did that. I paid myself. I went in, and then after I went to GIJ, they had a short marketing course, and I went and took that course as marketing, PR, advertising. So it actually also opened up a window for me, because at that time, the family had a farm, a poultry farm, and I wanted to change the way they sold the products. They were selling on site, and it was difficult to monitor, and the margins were low. So I used it to change the way it was done. So I brought everything to Accra. And by bringing it from the farm to Accra, your margins can go up as much as 70%.
Wow.
And so I sold from Accra. I built a little shop, and I did markets, restaurants, and stuff like that. So
this insight into making the move to Accra, was that inspired by the course or by the fact that you had been an entrepreneur pretty much all your life?
You see, when we were young, well, my mother, besides her being an educationist, she did some trading. We sold cooking oil, we sold eggs. My father used to do that. We sold. So occasionally they send you off, somebody's coming to buy, you go, you count the eggs. But the ideas and stuff, I guess, I was just looking at how I could make the business thrive more, but put a different face to it. So it was a combination of that, and yeah, so it worked that way. But, well, I guess from school, in university, because I wanted to be financially independent, we were looking for ways of making money. So we used to show movies, remember that movie RoboCop?
Yeah.
We're the first guys to show it on campus. So you can imagine it was a killing. We had, colored TVs, they are future ones, and we put a couple, you get a video cassette all the way, and then you show it and people pay. And we did that. We used to sell drinks. I was an agent for Fan Milk on campus and stuff like that.
Business closer to town as a result of an inspiration you had from the course you took, or because you had been just an entrepreneur throughout your life?
I guess it was a combination of my previous experience in school, and then some of the new ideas that I'd gathered from the course. So it was a combination, and it changed the margins.
So on university, you started doing a number of things. So you were showing movies,
videos, drinks, Farm Milks, agency, and whole week we actually take a place and we do drinks and stuff like that, just to make money.
So anything that would make you money legally, you were in it?
Legally, yes.
Very important, But I mean, you would look back at all of these things, and they may be fond memories, but how has that shaped your ability to spot opportunities today?
I think it's been one of the main foundation things that maybe I have, because I've joined businesses where most of the time it's you've got to start up something new. Both in multi-choice when I joined years ago, that's about 15 years ago, and then when I went into banking, I set up a new department. Launched a couple of products later on when there was a shift, and it's all been a bit like a startup kind of thing and going, So I guess it's part of it. So
okay, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll explore how the exploratory mind can be tapped and harnessed to create innovation. This is the Executive Lounge, and we'll be back after this. Welcome back to the Executive Lounge with me, Inshira Ado, and we're hanging with my guest, Cecil Sunkwa-Mills, the Managing Director of GoTV and MultiChoice Ghana. Now, in the first segment, he talked about how humility will take you far, and coupled with hard work. These are interesting values. We've heard that several times, but he said something interesting, that be as honest as you can be, and have an exploratory mind. So, in case you missed all of that and you just joined us, don't worry, you can catch the show on the repeat or on the YouTube channel. So, before we went on that break, I was asking you to share with us how important your natural curiosity was when you had to either lead innovation or be part of a team to create innovation in your career so far.
Well, let's start from, I worked with the Red Cross for 7 years. I started off as national service, it was for a year, and then I was the national youth coordinator. At the end of the second year, there was a need for the Red Cross to generate funds internally to cater for the internal expenses, both salaries and administrative expenses, the SG&A. So the partners, they had a consortium. They came up with a phase program where they were going to eventually go to zero support of administrative expenses, including salaries. And so they formed the department, which was basically called Resource Development and Fundraising. And I was made the officer to start that department. And so coming from school with my fun ice cream and stuff, they thought, well, I could do that. Okay. So, well, the long and short of it is we had to create innovative ways of making enough money to pay salaries. And by the end of the second year, we were self-sufficient.
Wow.
There were sources of doing direct. We started what you call the Fantastic Games. Now that games concept is what eventually Joy does at Elwak today.
Okay, so the sports invitational.
Yes, that's how it started.
Wow.
So it started with the Fantastic Games. Joy FM was a significant participant then. And then with Samens and, so there was Nestle, so it was a corporate games. And we raised quite significant amount of money. And MultiChoice was the main sponsor then. So this was a thing that happened continuously for a while. And we also had, the company had 2 trucks which were actually sitting idle. They were actually for relief, for delivering relief items when it happened, but they were sitting idle. So with the permission of the donors who gave the 2 Mercedes-Benz trucks, we actually commercialized them. We used them to transport relief goods to schools for the Catholic Relief Services, of which we earned some significant revenue. Then we also had, we opened a Red Cross shop where we had been allocated some used clothing from the Swedish Red Cross, and they gave us a quantity to sell. So we did that, and we made some money and put it into investments. So those were giving interest. But basically, we made money. We got donors from Stanchart, Barclays, were some of the banks then that actually supported us. And yeah. So that was the beginning of my commercial life. And in so doing, you remember I did say that MultiChoice was the main sponsor of the Fantastic Games.
You went and sold them the Fantastic Games, and they coached you.
I think that is what happened. So I was there to pick up a check for the Fantastic Games, and I got a job offer to become sales and marketing manager in MultiChoice. So I ended up making that step. So I came in, and there was so I started as sales and marketing manager, and there was a slight engagement where the operations department didn't have a manager then. Okay. So they needed some assistance from some IT guy who was assistant. And in the process, I resolved some issues. I think it was a PowerPoint presentation that was supposed to be done by the regional director, and they were struggling in doing the presentation and putting the graphs. And so I just went and I just helped him do it. So he came back and said, you know, what's he doing on my presentation? And the gentleman said he's actually solved the problem. They hadn't sorted for 2 days. So he looked at it, and then the next day I was called and they said, well, look, they're looking for an ops manager, but they believe I can do it. I said, I don't know anything about your software. So I don't know. He says, look, go in there 2 months. If you don't like it, come back. Tell me, it's fine. But you go in there, you like it, and let's talk about a package for you. So you stay there. So I ended up being the ops manager, basically.
Interesting. So you solve the problem, which is first to create or run the resource development and fundraising office with Red Cross. Then you ended up being offered a job.
Yep.
At MultiChoice. You solved another problem, then you got offered another job internally.
Yep.
So, do you think that today, as you now oversee a very interesting mix of people in a very dynamic environment, people from different backgrounds and nationalities, do we have the right mix of, what should I call it, the push factors that make people want to excel? Do we have the right motivation?
Yes, we do. It can be created. You know, we've got to listen a bit more, and we've got to communicate quite strongly. And the communication should be well structured. You should have, the vision should be clear, and you should be able to sell that vision in your communication. It should never be you. It should be us. And you must also bring people back to the point where they know why they have a stake in the vision. You know, more easily said than done. So you find some people will latch on, others don't. Those who don't, you can try to reinforce. You will still win some. The rest who don't, you say bye-bye. So you must always, you need the right team to help you meet that vision, you know. And if everybody is coming to the party, it may not be at the same strength, but you don't want people in your team who are not with the vision. If they're not with the vision, then you probably have to part ways. It's a lot of other soft skills training which actually helps, because sometimes somebody is not buying the vision because of some previous experience. You know, so in your bid to sell that vision, you need to take off probably your managerial hat, and you do a one-on-one, and then you find that, well, okay, this individual is, this person is constructed just differently because of experiences in life, and it could be life experiences, it could be previous job experiences, it could be even some people, things that are happening at home, so they just tend to have a bit of a block-out, you know, based on experiences. So sometimes by that close integration, you would find that, okay, you're able to turn a key of somebody that everybody brands at, oh, that guy is just a difficult guy. He's always late, he's always that. But sometimes when you get close, you find exactly what it is, and if they can communicate back to you, because one, they see that you've opened up, it's an open conversation you're having, you're not looking at the person with that different eye, and it helps to turn people around. A lot of people get turned around.
That's interesting. So for you, so you first decide on the vision and sell it and win over those who are reluctant, and those who are just purely recalcitrant and wouldn't budge, you wean them off.
After trying to win them back.
Okay. All right. So you just don't win them off. You try and then eventually you win them off. All right. fascinating, process, and the importance of communication is clear in all of this.
Right.
But how are you able to so you have people who are highly technically skilled, you have people who are doing clerical stuff, but all together, they make the multi-choice operation in Ghana work. In selling this vision and communicating it clearly, how are you able to get everybody to see the same thing, even though they're standing at different places?
Normally the vision is one. Let's take for somebody who does IT. I will expect that timeliness is important, but it's relevant to your role. Results may be more important than time, based on the situation. So you always get a balance of whether the person's role is more time-based for success or is results-oriented. So for somebody who's in sales, for example, it's not a time-based job. If you're not in the office at 10 a.m., but you have your part of the vision shared to you, and you're in the field, I'm cool with it. It's not an issue. But it means that at the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the month, we can measure what's happening. So there's some time-based roles. For example, if you work in a call center, it's time-based. So you cannot be late. It just doesn't exist. Okay, when it's time for you to go home at 4 a.m. and you go in, it's fine. I understand. For somebody who's in IT, for example, maybe time-based and maybe results-based, because there are times something may need to be done, which would take him all the way into the night, at say 10 p.m. So for somebody like that, and he says, look, boss, I work late, but you've got to communicate. Said, I know you work late, so you want to come in slightly a bit late. It's fine, not a problem. But make sure that you also have, in case of something, you can be reached and you can fix from where you are. So it's a blend of feeling you're working, but you're feeling at home. What I normally tell the team is that we spend most of the hours of our life when we're awake at work. So your workplace should be your home. You should have, when you wake up and you're coming to work, you should come to work with a light heart. And the trick about that is when you're able to get to that point, a light-hearted or happy staff, just watch the impact on your customers. That's how it's easy to get a happy customer, because they deliver the vision with happiness, because they don't feel stressed, they don't feel strained at work. And one of the things which is we do with communication, you're doing informal and formal. Informal is a lot of what I've spoken about. Formal, but for me, as the head of the team lead, I've got to make sure that I have my regular meetings. I've got to make sure if it's the daily, weekly meetings, we do staff meetings quarterly, and I make sure that managers do the same. So the line of communication and feedback flows on the formal side, and then the informal side is that. I'm big on spending lunchtime talking to people than having them just eating and going. You get into the office and have a chat with the guy, the security man at the gate. He tells you all the things that customers are not happy about, easily. But he can only tell you if he feels you communicate at his level. And it's about humility. If you keep wearing it, you get all the information you need quite easily at work. They tell you. So then you can go up and you can do the fixes much faster.
So you get all these staff to get the job done, and happily so. Largely because you keep the communications line going and the vision is very clear. You've talked about your successes at, in the banking sector when you spend time there, and also at Red Cross. It hasn't always been rosy. What are some of the things you tried that didn't quite work, and what lessons did you walk away with?
Yeah, some of the things, I remember when one of it was when we launched Secret Text. Secret Text is And so I was in SG, SSB. So we launched in partnership with MTN, who was in Ariba or something. And I'm showing how old I am, right? But it was to allow people who had accounts in the bank to top up the airtime remotely.
You were thinking a bit ahead of your time, weren't you?
Yeah, so I guess that's what happened. So Fuad Shalabi then was, so we had this exciting conversation and we went and we did the testing and all that. And now we needed the overall approval and demonstration of the product. And we went happily with our PowerPoint presentation and young yappy guys. Mobile phones were quite new things then. And we did a presentation beautifully of how it works and how convenient it is. And I remember the finance director in the bank, he looked and he just asked that, so you young men, you think you can use these mobile phones to play with people's accounts? The case closed. And we put in so much energy, but we went back and we reflected that, in driving that, that vision and dream of that product, we had missed out communicating with all the relevant parties. So we've had the stakeholders, so you've got to understand the external environment that impacts also on your vision. So we should have done some prior engagement of all these people, before the main presentation. So they already sold. So I think a year later down the line, we had to do a presentation again. At that time, the French had also purchased the bank. And they were like, but how long have you had this product? So we're like a year. And they said, it's been on the shelf. I said, roll it out.
But by this time, you had learned the lessons and you had engaged all the stakeholders.
Yeah.
How did you feel when it didn't go through the first time?
Very disappointed, because there was a lot more excitement about a new product than, actually. But yeah, we learn. And I believe that from experience, when you have a header or there's a mistake, it's fine to do a mistake once, maybe twice. But if you're not a learning person, then you keep doing it a third time. So you do 1, 2, and but then you should have figured a way out. Either you're going this way or you're going that way, or that's it. So yeah. So usually when we get failures, we just strive to keep moving on. And that's
now in the team that the teams you've worked in, when things haven't worked well, how do you get everyone to be hopeful? What's required for people to say, well, this didn't work, these are the lessons, we can do better tomorrow?
It's when you go over the issues, it's more of your positioning should be more of a questioning approach. That's what I use, than giving definite directions. Even though I want to go in this direction, the thing is that you've got to get the whole team to go with you, because you're not the one who's just going to do it. So you've got to go. So by using the questioning approach, people actually are able to think over and they come up with solutions, some even you've not thought about. So by going through those kind of sessions, you're able to get a better refocus approach towards getting back to your goal. And of course, if we didn't succeed because somebody just didn't do what they were supposed to do, a reprimand is in order. Usually it's done. Yeah.
Do you have to be nice when you're doing business?
Yeah, but you have to be nice when you're doing business. You can be even nice when you're firing someone. You don't have to stress. It's a dismissal. You're going. It's a sack. You're going. It doesn't mean I have to beat my heart and jump around. That's it. So it saves you a lot of blood pressure.
Interesting. Okay. So I don't want to get on the wrong side of, because you'll deal with me while you're smiling. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, I'd like to delve into some of the stuff of the future. I mean, the work you do, consumer taste is evolving rapidly. There's new technology, and that will shape tomorrow. Let's explore where your business sits and what we should think about as far as the media is concerned.
Sure.
Into the future. We'll be back after these. Welcome back to the final stretch of this episode of the Executive Lounge with my guest, Cecil Sunkwa-Mills. He's the Managing Director of Go TV and MultiChoice Ghana. So, consumer preference changes, if not exaggerating, by the minute. And technology sometimes is able to preempt and go ahead of it. But in your space, as tastes are evolving, where do you see the potential spaces for innovation?
We still haven't. We actually just moving out of analog into digital. The distribution platforms are also expanding based on availability of internet. You know, the whole thrust of digital migration is to provide a certain bandwidth, which actually makes internet, that bandwidth could produce, some people call it 5G or 6G. So that's where the future is moving. However, we're not completely there. We're not even completely there with 4G. So much as we're moving from analog to digital, we use the existing digital and internet, which is IP-based and satellite, to distribute content. In the industry, there is an egg and chicken situation, and it's about the creative industry. And we sometimes tend to forget that the people who are creating the content that we watch, okay, for some people, that is their life. So there's always the need for protection. We've seen a lot of quick developments in the last couple of months, even in the US, to help to protect the creative, the owners of the content over the platforms. But basically, we've moved from, I don't know if you remember when we had Mnet, the Mnet box.
Yeah, the grey box.
It was a big box with an antenna, which was analog. We had analog rebroadcasting services. And we moved from that to satellite, where we had a massive dish, a big dish, which was a satellite distribution. Because with the satellite costs coming down and availability, it became better to distribute with satellite. It made it possible to have a wider coverage compared to where you use a rebroadcast transmitter, which limits your spread of programs. So we moved to satellite, and even within the satellite space, we've seen moves from a big dish to a smaller dish, from C-band to KU. Cheaper distribution. Of course, we get some rain fade against when we had C-band, which was a lot more stable. But usually the duration should not be too long. And then we've also evolved into, there's also DTT, which is a digital terrestrial, which is coming up, which is very critical to free up bandwidth for better future products. And then with the availability of internet, we've seen now you're able to also do video on demand, with products like Showmax, etc. And you can also stream. For us, we've got DSTV Now. So when you subscribe for 3 different packages, you can actually take your DSTV channels with you, but within the territory that we have rights. You know, it's always important to mention that, because remember that we buy the content. So the guy who creates the content is able to make some money. So that's a way. And you find even within this grouping, then there are a lot of individual preferences. One decoder was fine years ago when you have one decoder at home. Then because that time in those years, if father comes, father
you decide what's what.
Determines what watch. But sometimes it's mother who determines, depending. But it's evolved. Now the kids, younger people are determining what they want to watch more. It's not just impacted on the decoder, but it's also impacted on the choice of programming. So you need more channels. Brought the birth of African Magic into being. So you have different channels evolving. So there's a choice for different people. Now, as you increase the choice of channels, now you've also got to look at the options, how many screens are available. So currently, if you can do one, we evolved to do the extra view, where you can have a second point at home. And then now it's also possible with internet that you can have 4 other devices that you can watch on your phone.
So you have the TV and then 4 other devices,
that you can watch. So this is also developing in other competitive industries. So it's you can stream, you've got video on demand, and even that we went further and we developed the Explorer, which actually allows you to pause TV, to record it, and now you can even record it remotely with internet connectivity. If you're not at home, you can actually instruct the decoder to record. And you also get catch-up, where it actually puts movies and series on a drive, because with time, the price of memory is also driving down. So the future, I think, is exciting. If we get better internet, we get cheaper memory size, we can do a lot of things, but with caution that we do not do it to the detriment of the creative industry. Okay, because the guys who create, that is their job. So we quite worry, and we always make sure that there's a balance. So you find we're actually not tolerant of piracy at all. And it's because it's the only way we can kill the creative industry is through piracy. So in all our distribution systems, etc., we very worry about that.
Talking about piracy, are we, as a state, focusing the right amount of effort at tackling it effectively?
It's yes and no, because it's actually, to fight piracy is a partnership. It's a partnership between both the industry, the regulators, and government. So there's been a lot of engagement at different levels, even with the judiciary, with the police, with the copyright administrator, with broadcasters, etc. And there's a lot of education, but at the same time, you also must push prosecution. So with the mix, other countries have gone way above it. Recently, in the UK, there was some box they have which they use to extract the English Premier League to stream across a lot of sites. They've just won a successful court case against them. We know what's happened with a lot of download sites that have been shut down. But it's because somebody does a $55 million movie, and you find somebody downloads it and puts it on a free-to-air station and shows it for free. So by the time that movie gets to the cinema, and the cinema guy who's paid for the content, eventually you're going to run down that business. So it's not about, yes, for some people they think it's exciting, but you're actually killing the industry. And it's not just for broadcasting. It's for the clothing industry, the fashion industry, So we need to protect people who create a lot more. And some countries have done it well. And a lot of the creativity is actually what sits in our culture. So once you get consistent piracy, who knows, one day Kente may not be connected to Ghana anymore if we do not protect it, for example. You know, stuff like that. So, yeah.
Social media.
Yeah.
It's revolutionized the way things are done. I mean, the way we view celebrities today, people are following people, we're connected ever so much now than maybe even 5 years ago. How does that impact on the distribution of content today? Because I could follow a celebrity who has a reality series running and I would pretty much get a semblance of what I would have watched on television. How's that impacting on business?
No, what most businesses have done is there has been an integration of social media into traditional media. Traditional media is not dead. We're currently on a bridge. So much as you develop your social media aspect for your business, traditional media also does work. Of course, in some cases, it may not be, because there's some strengths in the traditional media and there's some weaknesses. And those weaknesses have evolved more because we now have social media. You know, traditional media is more of a mass push. You know, they look for stars and you feature them to get more people watching, looking at it or listening to it or that. But it does not allow for two-way communication. It's more of what we give you, and we hope that that big net will catch some fish. It does work, but also when you look at social media, it actually allows a lot more of engagement and direct communication to specific targets, and you actually also get instant feedback, and you can respond. So it's a great thing to have, but you really need to also make sure that you have the skill and ability to manage that when you go into it. It's another huge opportunity for some people to make, some businesses to make good money, but there's a way of doing it. So we combine both traditional and social media for our business, and we focus we're quite strong on Facebook. Facebook has done some the monetization model because of the nature and structure and the size of data that Facebook has. A few years ago, we saw Facebook buying other companies, and we're wondering what was going on. It's about, first of all, it's about data. Okay, you have data. So they've got a huge database of people. So now when you've got a huge database of people with specific characteristics which they were building, now it's easy for you to go on Facebook. You have an image or a product or a service, and you can boost it. And it will help you choose the exact demographic and profile you're looking for. You want male between a certain age who live in Kaneshi or near Sunyani, specifically, you know, and are interested in fashion. And you can actually drive that and get direct marketing to those people and get feedback. And then the feedback you get, you've got to manage it. Through that fall, you may get sales because somebody will see it, because they're interested, it's targeted, they come back to you, and then you follow up with the sales. So that's another way. For some people who don't have the capacity, small businesses, some of them do what you call affiliations. So you ride on the back of somebody's platform, for example, and get that visibility and back. And for people who also own platforms, they also do sponsorships. Especially when somebody puts something on your platform. I guess for JoyNews, for example, you do a mix of affiliation and that, and also push your own services. And with The great thing about social media is you can quantify how successful your your page or your visual is, or your site, because you can actually measure how many people have visited. You look at the click rates, how many people are coming onto your page. Whilst in the traditional media, if you've got a billboard there, you really can tell how many people have seen it. So it's a bit more specific, but the combination of both. But social media makes it more scientific. But meanwhile, you've got to, I keep saying, you must know how to manage that platform, because it's free, it's open, whilst the traditional one is closed, so you're protected. If I don't like your product and you're on a billboard, or you do an advert on radio, how am I going to tell you? Or TV? I can't. But on social media, I will go onto your page and I will tell you why I am upset with your product or your service, and you have an opportunity to fix it, remedy it, or I can go on it and tell you, I want 10 cartons of your product, and that's a direct sale. So it's very good, it's very opportunistic, but you must manage it and get the best out of it to make sure you monetize it. So people do it in different ways. For people, some businesses doing their own platforms like newspapers, etc. They integrate payment platforms, subscriptions, etc. So you pay so you can get the product given to you all the time. So based on your product or your service, you could look at the model that fits, but you must have the skill to manage it.
There you have it. Fantastic spending time with you on the Executive Lounge.
Sure.
And we will now do our takeouts from this conversation. Now, number one is that you must be humble. Humility will take you places and it'll open doors that you ordinarily would not have walked through. Number two, be honest as much as possible. Honesty saves you time and saves your face and saves you having to clean up a lot of mess. And number three is that have a curious mind, have an exploratory mind, because out of all of that curiosity and exploration, you come up with solutions. And that leads to the fourth thing, that when you're given a problem to fix, fix it well. You fix it so well, you'll be giving more to fix. And of course, as you fix more problems, there are more rewards. And the final thing is that be wary of the future. It's not a threat, it's an opportunity. And that has been all the learnings that I have personally taken away from this conversation with Mr. Cecil Sunkwa-Mills, the Managing Director of GoTV and MultiChoice Ghana. Well, it's been a wonderful day. And I look forward to seeing you again next time with another episode of the Executive Lounge. Thank you to Kuku Apia, our friends at Villa Monticello, and X-Men Grooming. It's been awesome. Go forward, make rain. Shalom. We'll see you.